Welcome to The Deep Dive. We're the podcast that takes source materials and really digs in to find those key insights, basically giving you a shortcut to being genuinely well-informed. And today, well, we're setting off on a really fascinating journey, looking at excerpts from a document called Giertsogh III dies Julia-Kvin.txt. Our mission really is to explore these entries. They're intriguing. We want to trace how thoughts or events seem to progress across different dates, all in the early 19th century. We'll try to uncover the main themes, maybe some surprising details hidden away, and see what it all might mean for you.
And what's really interesting, I think, is the timeline here. These snippets, they run from June 1813 right up to August 1817. So that gives us this quite unique chance to see how perspectives might shift over those years. It's almost like reading a personal diary as it unfolds. Gives us a real window into that specific time and maybe the mind of the person writing.
Okay, yeah, let's unpack this then, starting with the earliest ones, from June 1813. We've got a couple of dates here, June 26th and June 28th. On the 26th, the author writes, the rain persists, making the path to the market a muddy ordeal. Heard old Stepan lamenting the state of the harvest. Pretty everyday stuff. But then, just 2 days later, June 28th, rumors of fierce fighting near Dresden. The air feels heavy with unspoken anxieties about our sons at the front. So what are the sort of initial feelings, the impressions we get from these first glimpses?
Well, straight away, they set a tone that's very grounded, but also quite anxious, wouldn't you say? On one hand, you've got the really mundane, like the practical worry about the harvest, the mud, very human stuff, daily struggles.
Relatable.
Exactly. But then, boom, June 28th, you get the war intruding, these rumors of fierce fighting. It pulls you right into the bigger historical picture, the Napoleonic Wars. It suggests this person is living life on two different planes at once. The immediate local reality and then this huge looming shadow of conflict tells us the author is paying attention to both the small details and the geopolitical currents.
So thinking about someone trying to understand this period or maybe get a feel for the person writing this, what are the first sort of aha moments here?
I think the first aha is that sense of vulnerability, but also community. The writer isn't isolated. They're hearing Stepan's laments, feeling that collective worry. For you listening, it's an immediate way into understanding how these huge events like wars really did filter down, how they impacted daily life, the worries of ordinary people, even if they seemed far from the action.
Yeah, it makes it real.
It does. It's a reminder that history isn't just, grand battles and kings. It's also about muddy paths and those whispered anxieties.
Okay, so let's move forward a bit into July 1813. We've got more entries here, July 14th, 17th, 19th, 24th, 28th. Does the focus change much during July? Does the story evolve?
Absolutely. I'd say July shows a deepening of their observation, definitely. So on July 14th, the author mentions, visited the neighboring estate. Madame Petrova spoke endlessly of new French fashions, utterly oblivious to the true cost of this war. Quite pointed. Then, just a few days later, the 19th, you get this really stark contrast. Young Arkady, just returned, spoke of the immense courage and terror of the battlefields. His eyes hold a weariness beyond his years.
Wow, that's powerful.
It is. And later, on the 28th, there's this reflection. One wonders if the cost in lives will ever truly be repaid by any victory. The future remains a blur, yet hope, like a stubborn weed, still finds cracks to grow through. These bits show the author really thinking more deeply about the contrasts in society and the very real human cost of all this fighting.
That definitely feels like a step beyond just noting the weather or local gossip. It sounds like they're really grappling with the bigger picture.
Precisely. You see their critical thinking coming through, pointing out that disconnect between, the trivial pursuits of some and the profound suffering of others. And bringing in Arkady's story, that makes the war personal. It's not just a rumor anymore. It's in the eyes of someone they know.
Right. It brings it home.
Exactly. And that final thought about hope being like a stubborn weed, that's such a strong image. It really captures, I think, the resilience people find, even when things are so uncertain. So yeah, these July entries, they definitely add layers. They show the author focusing more on the social and emotional world around them.
Okay, now we hit August 1813. And there are quite a few entries close together here. August 2nd, 4th, 6th, and 9th. Seems like a busy period in the diary.
It does seem particularly rich, yes. August looks like a time of both external pressures and some significant internal reflection for the writer. On August 2nd, interestingly, there are two separate notes. First, a merchant caravan passed through, bringing news of famine in the south and outrageous prices for salt. Just stating facts.
Okay, economic news.
Yes. But then, same day, another entry. My heart aches for those suffering. How can some profit so greatly from the misfortune of others? That immediate jump from observation to, heartfelt empathy and even anger, that's very revealing.
It shows you where their values lie.
Exactly. Then skip ahead a few days, August 6th. The parish meeting dissolved into heated arguments over land distribution. The old ways are crumbling. So social tension, too. And then on August 9th, something really personal. Wrote to Julia today, the first letter in months. Expressed my deepest fears, a confession I dared not utter aloud.
Ah, Julia. A confidant, it seems.
It suggests a deep trust, doesn't it? So these entries, they show someone deeply connected to the socioeconomic problems, the community tensions, for also processing their own private fears and feelings.
Right. This is where it gets really interesting, as you said. With so much happening in August, what are the big takeaways? What major insights or maybe character points jump out that are crucial for seeing the whole picture here? How might this resonate with, with us today?
Well, the August entries really paint a picture of a society feeling the strain. You've got the economic hardship, the famine news, the salt prices, the social friction over land. It feels like things are fraying. But what really stands out for me is the authors, their moral core. That immediate reaction on August 2nd, the heartache over suffering, the critique of profiteering it, shows a deep sense of justice, of empathy. And then that confession to Julia on the 9th, admitting deepest fears, that reveals a real vulnerability, doesn't it? And the importance of having someone you can trust, someone to confide in. It shifts the focus from just observing the world to sharing a very personal struggle within it. It really invites you, the listener, to think about those times when big public crises intersect with your own private anxieties and how vital those trusted relationships are.
Exactly. Okay, so after that intense period in 1813, we take a big leap forward. The next entries are from August 1817, August 15th and 19th. That's a 4-year gap, quite significant. What does this jump in time tell us about Giertsogh Quinn's journey or the world they're living in now?
Yeah, that 4-year gap is really telling. It highlights both what's changed and maybe what stayed the same. Continuity and change, right?
Yeah.
So August 15th, 1817, the author writes, 4 years on, and the scars of war are still visible on the land and on the people, yet new sprouts emerge.
Scars, but also renewal.
Exactly. And then, just a few days later, August 19th, this lovely little scene. The children are growing so fast. Julia taught young Pavel to read by the river. A new generation, untainted by the darkest memories, begins to blossom. So the mention of scars clearly shows the long-term impact of what happened back in 1813 in the war years. But the whole focus seems to shift, doesn't it? Towards recovery, regrowth, and this hope pinned on the next generation.
And Julie is still there, teaching.
Yes. Which raises that important question. Does this later viewpoint give us a sense of resolution or new starts, or is it still an ongoing struggle? And I think it's actually a mix of all three. There's definitely an acknowledgement that things are still tough, the scars haven't vanished, but there's also this clear move towards rebuilding. And Julia's presence, teaching Pavel by the river, it suggests that personal connection remains strong, maybe even central. And there's this focus on home, on education, as the way forward.
A foundation for recovery.
Precisely. It feels like a powerful statement about human resilience, doesn't it? And how history unfolds over the long term. It reminds you that even after huge upheavals, life finds a way. It adapts, it continues, it finds new ways to flourish.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into these Giertsogh Quinn excerpts, it feels like we've traveled through these, fragmented moments, but they're incredibly revealing, aren't they? Across 1813, jumping to 1817, we've really seen how looking closely at dated entries, even just these little snippets, can build up quite a vivid picture, a picture of a specific time, and it seems a really captivating mind behind the words. Someone concerned with, the mud on the path and the rumors of war, with social injustice and their own personal fears, and underneath it all, this kind of stubborn hope.
Absolutely. What's really compelling, I find, is how these bits of history, these fragments, they just light up the human experience across different eras. They show us these universal things: hardship, hope, watching the world, connecting with others. They echo down through the centuries. They're a great reminder that even small, everyday observations can hold some pretty profound truths about the bigger human story.
So for you, listening to this, maybe this deep dive leaves you with a final thought to chew on. What stories or experiences from your own life, if you wrote them down in dated fragments like these, what would they reveal most about your own journey and the world that you live in?